Nerd on the Podcast is proudly partnered with Apogee Electronics and Odyssey Headphones, leaders in the field of audio. You could have done that?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Nerd on the Podcast you didn't need, but you deserve, where all levels of nerd are welcome. Today, we experience the wonder in this anonymous adventure where you travel on a life's passage. We are discussing the indie adventure game of the marquee topic, Journey. Which is my favorite game. Oh my gosh.
You're welcome.
But before we get into all of the stuff and all of the things and all of the journeys, we're going to get into who your hosts are. I'm Caitlin.
And I am Tom.
Ollie.
And I am Josh, and this episode is brought to you in part by the members of the Nerd On Nation that is powered by Patreon. We are still doing this remote, and these episodes are still brought to you in part by that Nerd On Nation. And as a member of the Nerd On Nation, you do get fun perks like early access to our episodes. You get special content that is only made for you. You do get special servers in our Discord server, which it is now public, so we can invite more people into the realm of the Nerd On family. But as a member of the Nerd On Nation, you get private servers that are devoted only to you. But yeah, check out the Nerd On Nation. It allows us to grow and to be the best that we can be, especially in these times where we're having to grow and pivot all of the time and try to figure out things and stuff.
All the things and stuff.
Yes, nerdon.io/Patreon. And our Discord is nerdon.io/Discord. Also, this episode is brought to you in huge gratitude to Apogee.
Huge.
We are using their hype mic. It is an incredible
The ultimate
USB
podcasting microphone.
We're gonna. How long are we gonna do that?
Forever.
Forever.
As long as we're partnered with them.
Yes. Okay. Check
As,
out our live show on
Fear
YouTube
Cody.
to get that joke. We use Apogee Hype Mic that allows us to keep doing these episodes remotely and at high quality. We are also partnered with Odyssey Headphones. 3 of us are using them. Ollie still needs
Just
to come
3,
pick up his.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Logistics.
He's like, social distancing.
No, I can't
Yeah.
do that. I can't bring back your headphones, Josh. Anyway.
Yeah. Because actual can't.
Yeah, because actual can't. Tom did. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm Jason
we'll make it
Statham out of
work.
the bunch. That's why. I'm the badass out of the crew.
Anyways, that is the housekeeping. On with the episode.
Yeah. So, you know what's crazy? That this is a one and done completed game.
It is.
And what a game to play during this time where we're all at home. But at the end of the day, at the end of this episode, we are going to rate it. So that does bring us into our first segment of the show, which is Guess That Grump. No, Ollie, go fuck yourself.
Well, that's the song.
Stop rewriting other beautiful works with your bullshit. Guess That Grump, if you're brand new to the show, it is a segment where we are going to go around the screens because we do this on video too, and guess who is going to be the highest or the lowest ranking rated person as a scale of 0 to 5. No matter how high the number is, if you're the lowest in the group, then you are the Grump for the week. And since we do not have our resident rude boy on the lot to give us the Nerd On Nation poll, on our typical episodes, we will involve you into that. So listen to our topical episodes. You can see how they get involved, and it's really awesome to be seeing who is that Guess That Grump or Guess Grant Gator person. Since I always explain it and I'm never wrong and I'm a perfect life form, I'm going to go first.
Isn't Tom
Okay,
cool?
Sel.
For a change.
And I'm going to say that the Grump of the episode is going to be Josh.
Oh,
Can't be Caitlin.
that's true. That is very true.
It really can't.
It's not Destiny, so it could be me.
No,
Yeah.
I know exactly why
Right,
it's
Tom?
not going to be you. I know exactly why it's not going to be you.
I mean, I it's a shot in the dark. Like, I feel like It's
That's life.
hard. This one's
Kind
really
of is,
hard.
yeah. This one is.
I mean, I guess I'll throw the dart at the grump board. It lands on Tom.
Okay.
I'll say Tom.
Smart choice.
Is it though?
Caitlin or Ollie?
I think it's going to be probably no one but Tom.
Okay, 2 on Tom.
I'm gonna toss it to Tom too. Why not?
3 on
Wow.
Tom. Step on
Well,
down, everyone.
you know.
Y'all win a prize. So that now we move on to the next portion of our show, which is the complete spoiler of our rating, but not of the actual content. We are going to be spoiler free, and then after our brief synopsis, we'll go into spoiler country. But initial reactions. So, how did we first experience it? What was our reactions about it? So, how about Caitlin, since this is her one of her favorite games, or if not, is her favorite game?
All right. Okay. All right.
Oh wow, she's getting
Take us through your
So-
first impressions.
So I have been a massive fan of this game since it was in development. I remember I used to work for a video game website. I was writing about the development process of this game. So when it finally came out in 2012, it was like, I remember my first playthrough and I just melted on
Tears.
the couch. It was like I was a blob with no bones. Just like
So it's like that anti-drug
taking
commercial.
in- yes, exactly like that. I had been hit with the dopamine so bad. So yeah, it was just like everything about what this game was and the music and the visuals and the story that was there. It was everything that I'd ever wanted from a game. Like
Wow.
that was it. Like I play competitive games and I play like PvP games, but I don't truly enjoy that as much as I enjoyed this because it was so much about exploration and the process more than like bickering with someone else. But yeah, so that was me, a boneless blob of joy. That's me.
boneless blob of joy.
Ollie, let's go and confirm why I didn't pick you.
Okay. So, I mean, this game, it's very interesting, right? When you look at independent games in the landscape, like especially, obviously this is a few years older, but it sort of it can become a testament of like cool emerging technologies in gaming and concept development and coming up with cool things. And to me, this is such a pivotal game in the sense that it's such a great snapshot of how you can create intelligent like mechanics and systems and intuitive gameplay mechanics. You know, not a single line of text is on screen, and it's just shows you the shape of the controller and all that stuff. It's a very universal, very approachable game, and which really it's funny because it doesn't have to be localized, right? It's like it's all through music and through gameplay, and it's such a great just progression from beginning to end. And it's it's a shorter game. I don't know if we've mentioned that or we will. It's a couple hours you can get through a playthrough.
Spoilers.
Well, I mean,
I'm kidding.
you should go in
kidding.
with that expectation. It's not going to be a 60-hour adventure or anything like that.
Slog.
But unless you want to make it that, and we'll talk about trophies and stuff, I'm sure. But I love the game. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing, and it's
amazing.
what you want in a platformer.
Yeah. Tom?
So I played the game not like when it first came out, but like very like surface level. And I remember my friend Curtis Phelps, he had Flower, and I played Flower, and he was like, "Yeah, this is kind of just really chill game." And so like I remember him, like I was staying the night at his place like for 2 nights when I was like doing summer school, and we just played it on the floor of his place, and it was fun. It was fun to do. And then so when Journey came out, I was like, oh, it's the same developers. Okay, whatever. But then I played it for a little bit, and it to me, I felt like I didn't have the same experience as playing with someone else because it was like very by myself. But then, long time ago, when the pyramids are still young, Caitlin joined the Nerd On crew. And then I decided to stream it for a playthrough. And I was very surprised that I was able to stream it in one session and be done, quote unquote, be done. And we'll talk about more of that later. But yeah, and then I played it one more time in preparation for this, and that gameplay was completely different. And I hated the fact that I didn't know that until like recently. But then, so my initial reaction for the game was that I can't think of a better concept of powerful storytelling without words like this. And I was just like, it's very interesting that that game company has developed a sense of universality that their games have. And this one, I think, is one of the top 10 games I would suggest to anyone to play any type of video game if they've never played a video game.
So good.
Yeah. It's like
Josh?
it's kind of cheesy, but it's like it's using the language of emotion versus like actual language. So that's sort of like universal and
Emotions.
part of humanity.
Ew.
Yeah.
So excited.
Josh?
Real talk. I still haven't played. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
no, real
I was about
talk.
to be so angry.
Until we put this on the docket, I had never played a solitary second of this game. I had no idea what to expect. No idea. I hadn't watched a
You hadn't
trailer.
seen anything either?
I haven't watched. All I had seen was artwork, the thumbnail on the PS4 like store.
It's the store page.
Yeah. It's been free a few times in its life on PSN. And so I didn't know what to expect whatsoever. And so starting it, I'll be perfectly honest, it was a journey. It was a learning experience. It was completely different than what I have ever experienced in a game. Not a bad experience, just a different experience that I was like...
Catches you off guard.
Yeah, it does throw you off guard because... And we'll go into that later. Yeah, it was an interesting experience. And so finishing it, it was like... At the end, you were like, wow, that was fucking dope. So that's my initial reaction.
And since we're in spoiler-free territory, I do want to just also add that like game developers really should look at this as a I would say a template, honestly, for when you want to make a game, because it's like it just shows you what's possible with so little like communication to the player, or so you think the traditional communication, and
not so much hand holding.
Yeah, it teaches you how you can get away with. For the most part, you can get away with not having to handhold somebody, but at the same time, make things like really obvious and really intuitive. And yeah, you're not going to immediately know how to solve every problem, but they kind of give you the tools for you to kind of discover. And yeah, I would say this is a great place to start to like look at like game theory and what like player versus game experience would looks like, especially if there's any like game students out there, anything like that, and are curious about wanting to expand that sort of like game theory knowledge. This is definitely one of those games to pick up.
But also on that front is looking into the development of the game and what went into it, just from an emotional standpoint, and the inspiration and all that kind of stuff. So it's very the process of it, I think, is very interesting. So
awesome. So now we step outside of spoiler-free county and go into spoiler country, baby.
Oh my gosh, I'm just so ready.
So our next two parts are going to be our brief synopsis, where we're going to briefly summarize a little bit of the game, and then our meat and potatoes, which is the production, and then we'll go into our favorite parts. We'll do like maybe favorite. There's no favorite characters really, so maybe favorite segments or
Favorite
things,
challenge
aspects. Yeah. And then we'll do our qualms, and then we'll rate. So, I'm going to do this as oh no, we're not in spoiler free. We're not in spoiler free county yet. So we're still spoiler free right now. You are a red cloaked traveler in a desert, and as Ollie said, without any verbiage, just showing you the controller, the game tells you where to go. the beginning of the game, there it shows you the
game actually
animatic.
doesn't even. Sorry. The game actually doesn't even tell you where to go.
Yeah, I mean the animatic shows the title and then the top of this mountain, which emits this powerful light, and that becomes your kind of North Star, your guiding point of where you want to go. But you are more than welcome to explore, and once you do that, you'll start seeing other aspects of the game, and they'll teach you mechanics of how to traverse through different lands, such as the desert, underground, through the snow, through castles and stuff like that. Till you finally reach your destination. But throughout, they weave this story, and as we said, it's all done without any type of dialogue box. And the music plays a very powerful piece to the game, and as well as some other in-game mechanics. And that's the brief synopsis. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like 20 minutes.
I mean, pretty succinct.
Yeah. Well, that's the most I can say without being spoilery.
that was about as long as the
That's fair.
game. Man.
Yeah, right. So now,
Sick burn to who?
I know, right? We will do the production. So, production publishing company is Sony Computer Entertainment, the gaming hardware company of PlayStation. Annapurna Interactive, they did the iOS and PC ports. They did games of What Remains of Edith Finch, 12 Minutes, and Outer Wilds. The developing company, so the game developers, That Game Company, that's the entire company's name. It's one word, That Game Company. They did Flow, Flower, and then their most recent game is Sky, Children of Light. The notable creators that we can mention, there's a lot of great people that put into it, but the people that we can put in this list, the director was Genova Chen, who was actually like the CEO and head person of That Gaming Company, who done work of Cloud, Flow, and Flower. The producer was Robin Hunicke, or Hunaik. I might mess up the pronunciation. I apologize. Who is responsible for Sims 2, Open for Business, Glitch, and Wadham. The composer, Austin Wintory, who's done work from Absolver, Assassin's Creed, Syndicate, and the John Wick Hex game. The leads are the programmers, John Edwards and Martin Milton. And at this point, everyone at home listening, there's not anything you could find. Like I Googled and searched and went to the website and like tried to find like credits, IMDb, all this stuff. And they have all unlisted info. So John Edwards and Martin Middleton, your programmers, you guys are amazing. The artists, Matt Nava, who done work on Abzu and The Pathless, and Aaron Jesse, who's done Evil Within and Crash Monsters. There is no other series in the game. There's no other franchises other than the fact that it's part of That Game Company's like whole collection. The original release date is March 13th, 2012 for PlayStation 3. And there is no
Nice.
cast. Except the Red Traveler, I guess.
The player
but-
is the cast.
Yeah. So, now we can jump into, again, the meat and potatoes. So favorite parts. Now we're in spoiler county, babe. Let's talk about it. So about that white cloak though, right? Okay, no. So who wants to jump off? Who wants to pop off with the favorite part?
So I was all about the what the game was inspired by, because it was inspired by like a Japanese garden, and how like the emotion that it evokes is like the most important thing, and that the player is represented by the cello solo.
Oh, because that's you, right?
Yeah, you like the cello that like that changes with everything. That is supposed to represent like you and the struggles that like you're facing throughout the whole thing.
Well,
So,
I mean, like, aren't you a big cello person?
I'm a bass player. Upright bass, totally different, but that's okay.
He tried.
Don't even ask me about it. Oh, I did have a small snippet as well. Journey is one of the games that Genova Chen has been honored by exhibits curated by the QM Gallery in Arawak in 2016, the Smithsonian's permanent collection in 2013, and the MoMA's collection in 2013. Their latest game, Children of the Sky, was featured as Apple's iPhone Game of the Year in 2019. So just like
Journey
you know,
got a Grammy nod too.
yeah, Grammy
in
nominated.
2013 for DDDD Best Soundtrack for Visual Media. They didn't win, but like video games
That's a big
had
deal.
never been nominated for that category
It's,
before.
it's,
so that
for
was
everyone
huge.
listening, it's like equivalent to like a comic book movie getting Best Picture. It's like,
Right.
is that possible?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, more favorite parts. Ollie, look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I just love the way. I guess you can call it a part, but I love the flight in this game. It just feels very organic, and just like the energy that's like from the little scarf that you have that like propels you forward just feels very satisfying. Like the physics of the flight is very satisfying and surprising how easily I shouldn't say easily, how effortlessly it looks for them to pull off as developers for just the physics of the game, like entirely. Like games, other developers can take some serious notes from how the physics in this is handled, for sure.
Josh?
It's hard with this game to pick a favorite part because there's so many aspects of the game. It's a visual and auditory experience at the same time. Not just like music, but sound effects. And then you have a visual standpoint that is just like, I mean, the last chapter is just it's a mind fuck that you're just like, oh, and now I'm doing this, and now I'm flying
what this
here, and I'm
game
writing
is?
this. What?
You know what this game feels like, especially since you mentioned that? Like, it's almost as if they took like the emotion and the soundtrack of like your favorite like emotional movie that has like crazy ups and downs, and they just like separated the emotion and soundtrack from the movie and threw the rest away and kept the emotion and soundtrack, and you just played through that.
Yeah.
Like it's
So
like
true.
like just especially, I mean, since we're talking spoilers, not to take over your thing, Josh, I'll send it back to you, but like going over that ridge at the end, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was
Where you start slowing down and you're cold.
that's a perfect example of like this feels like it's from a movie.
Well, to me, I'm just like, bitch, I'm gonna get there. If it take, and then you start slowing down, your controller starts rumbling, and you're like,
you're like,
no.
you're like pushing.
Coming
you can
over
only
the
push the
ridge.
stick so far, and you're like, oh,
Go further.
well,
Can't-
Wait, buddy.
but
do it.
bring it back to Josh.
But I think my overall favorite aspect of the game, and I'll go into it a little bit in qualms later on, because I do have something to say about this. But there's an anonymity to the game. The multiplayer aspect of it, I think, is fascinating. I did not know what was happening until the credits rolled.
Yeah.
Because I would see somebody that looked just like my character while I was playing, and then when the credits rolled, it said players that you met along your journey. And then digging deeper, like going, like Ollie, you briefly mentioned earlier that we might talk about this, but trophies. Looking at the trophies, I'm like, you could have done that?
Well, and then you
don't like anyway.
I mean, it's in a rare occasion where the trophies kind of hint things at you and like kind of show you how you could play a game and kind of tease you in like certain ways.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if like it's a side quest or like a new game plus kind of like that's your side quest checklist, right? Of like how to fully complete the game and fully max out your like stuff.
So I talked about it earlier. I played the game one time and I felt like I had a very singular experience. I went through, I played it blind. I was like, cool. And I got to the top of the mountain. I fucking died. I came back to life and I fucking flew up and all that shit. It was all fucking dope. But then I played it again for this episode, right? And so when I played it and then I immediately unlocked Return. I was like, oh shit, I got a fucking trophy for like coming back to the game. And I was like, cool. And I started playing the game. And then I, open it up and then there's the mountain and I go through and I unlock my power. And then I finally get to the first city. But then I see the giant tower, right? And so I'm like, I go to that tower and then I start going to each level and elevating. And then it starts showing me all of the things that I should have done. And I was like, oh, is it recounting upon my last journey? I was like, that's kind of cool. But then I didn't realize that after I got out of that level and then the white traveler or the white, cloaked person came in and then, showed me the next path, which is the ice levels. And then I was like, I thought I was supposed to go underneath and ground and do all this other stuff before. And apparently I feel like I had jumped into someone else's playthrough because I had met someone else along the way. I was like, oh, is that my shadow self? Is that my ghost? Did I like meet like the past time frame of where I was at the game? And then and to Josh's point, like, it's like, you just didn't, like, I was completely blindsided that this was even possible. Right. And so like, I started going with this person and we started going and traversing. And then when it starts winding and blowing and I fucking blew off. I blew off the place. And then I was like, oh, that sucks. I'm not going to, because I was kind of racing that person too. I was like, I'm going to get there before you. I'm going to get there.
At the bottom path.
And then I went down the bottom path and I was like, shit, I'm not going to catch up. And then I caught up and then they were waiting for me. And then I was like, oh, okay, so never mind. So this is this an NPC? I never knew, right?
They gave you a big old charged chirp.
No, and then so like we would chirp every once in a while, right? And then we would walk and walk. And then we finally got to the icy cold at the end level. And then we both passed out. And then when we came back, we all came back to the final when you're entering into the brightness, like they would be in like the camera the way it was, they would be in front of the camera and I'd be in front of them so I couldn't see me, but then they would move so that we could see both of us walking side by side. And I was like, what is going on? And then I had to look it up and I was like, you can play with someone else. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I cared so much about this other person, making sure that they found everything. Like I got us hit by the dragon thingy and then like they waited for me. I was like, and then it's interesting. You do build a stronger bond with someone that you've never spoken to because you start really worrying about like, are they going to continue? Are they going to get through it with me?
The other thing about that I love about the anonymity and like reading into like the developing of the game is like, that's why they didn't even want to show you player names.
Yeah.
Because even when you see a player name, you develop like, oh, this is Brosif69.
Look, it's Uber Dragon asshole.
I've already created a judgment about this person. Whereas if you don't see anything, you're just on a journey together. That's it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was multiplayer. Like when I first played it, it was.
I didn't know.
I completely forgot about it when I played it for this episode, and I was playing through, and I was like, oh, weird. I don't remember like other characters in this. I was convinced it was like an NPC, and then it kind of like stopped. It started following me, and then like doing kind of what I did, but then like kind of not. You know, like sometimes you're like kind of suspicious. Is like, is this an NPC?
I kept going,
you're not really
it's
behaving.
me. It's just
like
me.
You're almost too coordinated.
It's me.
And too self-thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And
I
then
think it's an actual person.
And then they were real people.
They dropped off in like 10 minutes though. Most of my most recent playthrough was solo.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
the people that I met
get-
weren't on there long, so I didn't think anything of it. I just thought like, it's like a mirage, like it's a part of my journey, like it's me, like a weird like visual
shadow
thing.
self.
Yeah, and no, exactly. And
that's what I thought.
Maybe it was a part of like, maybe I was a part of a tribe, and this was this, and
I was like, it's just like
nobody was ever
Cheeks.
there for more than a few seconds. And then, but at the end of my journey, when the credits rolled, it was like 4 to 5 people that were there, and I was like, when did this happen?
When? What? Who?
No, so
what?
when I discovered that, I thought that was the most charming thing in the world because obviously I watched like reviews for this, like IGN, and it was really cool. IGN's review for it, they said, I'm not going to tell you much about the story, just play the game. And I was like, that's so like dope because I think it does like the intrigue or the mystique of it, of like going in blind, is part of the journey. And like that's the thing where it's like we're going to use journey in facetious ways. But like when I first played it, I very much was like, this is like a metaphysical experience for me of like, I'm going through life and I'm experiencing these things and there's gonna be ups and downs and they're going to throw things at you. And sometimes the world, is going to change the rules. And you finally get up there, and I was all by myself when I first played it. And then when I played it for the second time, I really started paying attention to the world. And I started seeing like, what did the magic really mean? Like, what did the red carpet really mean? Or, the material, and like, what were these dragon-like things? And like, what is the greed? What are these things sticking out of the ground? Like, these are graves. And like, what is this desert? It's like, oh, this is like nature reclaiming civilization because, people took this power.
You realize they're graves.
Yeah, they took this power from above and started like saying like, it's mine, instead of like sharing it and making their utopia. Apostles like left, and you were the chosen one to kind of like help start it. But then I think the sweetest part is like the very end is like, once you're done, a light branches off and then the journey starts again. And that's kind of like this beautiful thing that like, it's tough because it's like, is it sad that like we're always going to continue to relive these, terrible times and relearn our history?
Is it reincarnation? Like,
is it reincarnation? Or is it wonderful that like the journey is always ongoing? And so I'm like, those are interesting questions you ask yourself.
The fucking transition from, okay, so the game ends, the credits roll, and then you're back at the start. I just thought it was fucking flawless. I was like, I just kept watching because I tend to watch the credits of the games that I play. And I was like, oh,
Here it is.
I see what you did there. It was seamless. Like you couldn't. It was just the way that everything floated together and went into it, and then you were like, "Oh," because you know how sometimes you can see the difference. Like you're like, you can see when you're like in a cinematic or this, and then you're starting gameplay. Like this was just like perfect, and I was like, "You bitches!"
I know it's
haven't heard
like
from
watching
Caitlin,
a
yeah.
perfectly looped video.
Well, she doesn't get to talk. This is her favorite game.
This is my favorite game, you know. No, honestly, I'm just enjoying listening to all of your responses to this game because it so perfectly is capturing like the reason why this game is so important to me. Because there's no dialogue, because you kind of don't notice it. When I played through it for the very first time, I like the momentum that the game kind of, you fall into this like slipstream and you're just kind of, it almost feels wrong to stop the first time. And then when you come back, you're like, you know what? I have more knowledge of what this is. So I'm going to like branch out more. I'm going to explore more. And,
which will behoove you.
Right. So there's so much more you can do in that world. And like this game is like my aesthetic. I love the very warm and the very cold, and how the music changes with your with your actions and the scenarios. I don't know if you guys knew about the live tour that they did with this game.
Go ahead.
So
Tell
there
me.
was actually a Kickstarter that came together after this game came out. I think it was within like a year or something. But basically, an orchestra went around to several cities, and they had someone playing the game live because it only takes about 2 hours, which is like a concert length. And so they had taken the composition and chunked it in such a way where the orchestra was playing in real time to a player
that's
playing
awesome.
the game. So they did a couple of those. It's just amazing. Like
That's awesome.
this is the kind of thing that I personally am drawn to. Very emotional, very artistic, very like there's so much thought put in, and it almost like this game was supposed to be completed in a year and it took 3. They already knew that like extensions were going to happen, and I think it started with a team of like 7 and ended up being a team of like 18 or something. But it's such a short game and it's so compact, but like even with the like playtest that they did, 3 of the 25 people that played the original playtest like cried, because how can you not? Like this is it's so vague and
well, it's sort of like it applies to it applies to so many different things. Like we've been saying, like it's such a universal.
It's pretty much the hero's journey.
Yeah, and it's just anybody can understand it, and we've all been exposed to enough media at this point to know, like we're all, you know, we're gonna reach back to some other movie or some other game that we've played that has similar experiences, and we're using that. Like for me, the tower is very Zelda. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, Tom. As far as like the reason I would love it is because it's like Water Temple basically, but like in such a pure like spiritual way instead of it being like actually the Water Temple. So
the only reason I didn't pick you is because you said the thing already is I like the visuals.
I like visuals.
Because visuals play with you so much harder than it plays with me.
When like the ripple of the sand that like reflects the right color and all that stuff. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's just pure joy.
It could be the most beautiful thing, and then you hear a fart sound, and then all you're like, it just impacted me so much that the visuals were beautiful and pretty.
Well,
like, and I joke about it, and I was like, oh, he's going to talk about the visuals.
Well, the environments were so palpable. Like when you're walking through the snow, and you're feeling the vibrations, or you're going forward, and it's like. You're like at the end, you're feeling that slog. You're feeling that like
it's great like cinematic camera work, which you don't see that in too many games, unfortunately, is that sort of like cinematic attention to the camera work that's in the game. Like as you start approaching, like I remember when you start approaching that sort of point at the end, the camera kind of shifts over and gets the shot that it wants, you know, and like it starts pulling in, and it's just
No,
it's very cinematic and very.
Yeah, there was a really dope scene where it was like when the wind is blowing, and then me and my companion, the second time playthrough, we had to go in between this little crevice, and the camera pulls up, and then you just see us walking between these two cliffs.
That was one.
And I was like, why didn't they do this in Lord of the Rings?
They're showing that
I
like
think
pass,
they
so sort
did.
of like they kind of did. I think they had a similar shot, maybe, but going through the pass. But like, yeah.
But no, I was just like, man, like it was definitely. And yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's very hard to not put yourself in that place, and that's the thing where I really liked about it. It's like no matter what you're going through, like audio engineer stuff, or if it's graphic design or game development, or someone's doing acting. Everyone has their own journey that they're going through, but this one speaks at such a fundamental level where it's so easy for you to put yourself into the traveler's position where it's like this is what this is like, and I just felt like it was so wonderful that they were able to make it super relatable for you. And I thought about you a lot, Ollie, because I think you always talk about how video games is like the next level of entertainment experience because you get to actually experience it versus a film. They have to do a lot to make you feel like you're that person or you're invested in that relatability. But here it's like the controller's in your hand, so you're doing it. And I really love that this one here speaks to so many different things, and
so it's the ultimate like combination of the different like forms of media where like you can have like song, dance, interaction, which I think is an important art, and all these come together, and this is a great example of it.
Yeah, it's not like I'm a father and I have a son, but I also have never been the God of War, so I guess I kind of understand it. Versus like it's like I'm walking through a place. Okay, where am I going? Okay, cool. Now I could do this cool stuff. It's to me, it's almost like it's like being born and then going through life and then death. Like you learn how to walk for the first time. You learn how to fly, and then it's those kind of things where it's like that's you growing out of your juvenile states to your adulthood. And it's like you think you got everything right, and then some things will take those abilities away from you. And the thing I really love the most, one aspect of it was like, for me, my first time playing it, I experienced this feeling of like, I always think of there is a game called Dante's Inferno, and no, not Dante's Inferno. It's Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater 3, right? Every person you killed, you actually end up meeting them in the River of Styx. So the game changes based on how many people you've killed. And so what I thought about with Journey was like, I'm playing this through, and was it and now I'm in the ice level, I'm going up the hill. I was like, I made my freaking scarf so long. Is this thing weighing me down now? And that feeling of like the things that you've accomplished is like, are those helping you? Are they hurting you? Does it add more pressure to you, your ability to get to a place?
I had a very similar thing, like where for me, it was kind of the opposite. I built up my scarf as much as I could, and I spent extra time in that the one where you're building the bridges. I spent a lot of time in there just to make sure I got all the extensions, and I was like, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to get all the upgrades. However, and like at the end, I'd made a foolish move, and I got hit twice by that thing.
Yeah, it's so devastating.
And the dread of it, of like, fuck, like I just lost this thing that I've been building, and of course, me being the gamer, like immediately pause. Is there a load? Is there should I end my session? Maybe I didn't save it. Maybe I can go back to
this is real life.
But no, this is real life. Like I'm stuck with my decisions. I was too hastily went out of the cover, and so I have to pay the price. And so that happened to me twice during the playthrough where I built it up and then it got taken away from me. And I was like, man, this is like really adding to the it really did add to the sort of the pleasure of, or the catharsis of going through that last pass where you're being lifted up by all the particles and everything's glowing and it's all magical.
Like, dude,
that felt great at the end afterwards.
I got my companion hit, and that was like the most devastating thing. Is like, not only did I get myself hurt, but I got them hurt, and then now I've cost them their ability to traverse. I'm like, if I mess up, I hurt other people, and like that was like such a really cool, like, man, they're hitting like
it's
lessons.
Too real.
It's so good.
Yeah. I think the one that got me a lot was because I think it's important to have like a very healthy relationship with death. And when they have that last like premonition, because the White Cloak, your guide, you can tell that they're ashamed of like having to tell you about like, this is our fault. Yeah. Like you have to face what we left behind. So I'm sorry. And when you get that final vision, that's like, you will fall. You will crumble before you
Oh
reach
yeah,
the
and it
end.
goes a close up to you see the little image of them on the
with
ground.
the wind, and it's
Yeah.
like it's like you're not gonna make it. Do you like? Are you still gonna try? And to me, that was extremely powerful because it's like, this is gonna get like
Whole world's
super
against you.
morbid. No, but to me, it meant like we're all going to die. Do you still want to live?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
of all the hard things you're ever gonna face, like you're going to move past them, and at some point you're going to not be quote unquote alive anymore. I put quotes because we don't really know what's past this.
Flying through with more
right,
scarves.
New game
So,
plus.
We all go into each
that
other's.
was-
Yeah.
That was a very powerful moment for me, just to like see that, you know, there will be all this hardship, there will be all these things, you will have an inevitability that you will face that is completely unknown to you. Do you want to keep going? And it was like, yeah, I do.
No. I mean, yeah, I definitely think they keep hitting it home, like not even with that, but in world like techniques of like you're going through like you're the desert, you think is like, oh, this is long, arduous place. But once you start realizing like the cold, dark underground area, it's like, I want to go back to the desert. Like this place sucks.
I want to be back in the sun. Can I please?
Yeah, and then like you go
It's
to the
cold.
icy place where like you see more graves, and then you
The
start
like
seeing like the
underwater
little
place was like my favorite level.
Yeah.
I was like, but
Oh,
it
with
was
the
also the
glowing,
most
like-
terrifying because that's when
Kept
they
raising the
introduced the
level.
monster, and
Yeah.
those monsters were fucking terrifying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like they were just
Um,
like the anticipation of them was just like
yes. Well, and
I-
then when you didn't realize that the statues on the side are those creatures, and when they like
Mhm.
come to life, and you're
Well,
like,
when Fine Flowing moves, you're like, oh no.
Okay.
And then you realize you've gone too far, and you're like, oh, can I go back? But this is the only place I can go. I will have to make one shout out a favorite part of just after, you know, your character, you know, dies and makes a sacrifice and is reborn or goes to heaven, whatever belief system you want to put it into. And it's just like your controller vibrates so hard and then it just blasts off like Superman. I was like, oh, this is so dope. And then like I saw those little
Mhm.
dragon things going up. I was like, I'm gonna go through you. I hate you.
Yeah.
You got me so much shit. But I was like, and then like once you get through like the tunnel of light and then you just see like the heavens, it's like, oh,
and
this
then
is like wonderful.
the little creatures turn into those whale things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I called
That
them like,
was-
yeah. The magic carpet guys. Yeah.
Yeah, the magic carpet guys.
another like aspect of the game that isn't necessarily a part of the gameplay, but it kind of is. There's a level, basically like in the first chapter, there's a level where there's kind of like these caves that are around you, these like insets that it seems
Oh,
like
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't
yeah.
get into. If you are starting the game again and you go to chapter select, that is the chapter select, and all of those things are the different levels. And you fly to, if you want to go to a
that's really
different
nice.
chapter.
Whoa!
I was like, because I wanted to see what it looked like, what the chapter select, such
Yeah.
a stupid detail, but I want to know what the chapter select
Yeah.
menu looked like. And it was that. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wonderful.
This is a fun detail.
And
So-
I want to add a little disclaimer that was actually new information to me, despite me being a huge fan of this game. Like,
Yeah, I know
I
either.
was much more into the emotional stuff rather than playing this 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So I feel like whatever your experience with that game, with this game, all of them are important, even if you only ever play it once in your life. Just
Yeah.
wanted to make that little side.
It's kind of like if someone said Dark Knight Rises is their favorite movie, which I don't think a lot of people do, but it's like knowing that Gary Oldman lost his script and it went into a dumpster. Like, you know, you don't know those certain things, but it doesn't take away the fact that it's your favorite thing.
Mm.
So, I think
There was-
go ahead.
There's one thing of note that I did want to draw a comparison just because it did not bother me, but it was like this playthrough is what made me realize it. And it's that Destiny 2, because it came out after, the first the second mission or level is basically this game where it's like
Well, you're with
you
no
don't have your
powers walking
You
through.
don't have your powers. You're slogging along, and then like it even comes to like a crescendo where you come over a hill that's
Mhm.
like has light peering, and you see like a view, and it has it's done by like a Japanese like quartet or something like that with strings. And
Oh,
guess
surprise.
what the name of the song is? That's 7 minutes long.
Journey.
And it's Journey.
Of course it is.
Wow.
It's nice to see the stuff permeate, which whether it's conscious or subconscious on their part, it makes sense. It's tried and true. It's hero's journey. Like
I will say
Yeah.
that
It's
I
got all
added
this
this to my. I have a Spotify playlist called Video
Nice.
Game Soundtracks, and I have added.
Yeah.
I
It's a
have
great
added
addition.
that to it.
No, I one thing I really always adore about this game is that like I quote Epic Mealtime because they gave me this quote of it's so stupid it's smart, but to me it's like it's so simple it's complex, and like that's what this game is. Like I feel like you totally, if you take it for face value, you really miss a lot of the minutia of storytelling in there, and I think that's what I've always been advocating for. And you've heard me talk about like in the film spectrum, it's not just horror, comedy, blah, blah. It's expressionist and narrative. Like there is a bigger spectrum of like, how do you even weave meaning into something without even having a spoken word? And so when you can do that, I think to me, these are the telltales of someone who's mastered storytelling. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but like one of my films got the best screenplay award and I had no dialogue. And those are the kind of things that like I find really important, is that you can tell stories without having to hold people's hands and without having to be like, here's the fucking why you should care. It's like, no, just make it so relatable to the point where like you have to care. And
They
that's
definitely showed us. They didn't tell us.
yeah, and I think that's a really forgotten art form. In all honesty, I think it's such a forgotten art form, and I think it's because of like the like late 2000s, like mid 2010 era where like everything just had to be explained. Everything just was dialogue driven, and everyone's just like the story, the characters. I'm like,
Well, I
what
mean,
about the meaning? Like, how about
that
just tell me what the meaning is?
accentuates that accentuates what you brought up about it being like about how I always talk about video games as art, and like these are all ones and zeros, right? It takes an artist to put it together and to give you the experience that you're getting, whether it's just the simple physics of the flying, or whether it's like the items you're collecting, you're picking up, where they're placed, how big this level is. There's so much artistic decision that goes into these, and you don't really get that from all your AAA titles all the time. But it takes a game where it just pulls back to the essential and just shows you only the things that you didn't know video games had in them, which is like the ability to express this amount of emotion, this amount of art.
Yeah, like I cared more about my companion than I've ever cared about any other NPC, and then like realizing it wasn't an NPC, like doing the little chirp game, like I was just like when it got really bad, I was beep 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 beep, because I was just like, we can make it, because I was like, and then like I would see like if I got close to them and I pressed it, like they would slowly start turning red, and I was like, I'm saving them, and like that's. To me, like it's not like some hot chick with guns that like it's the romantic interest of the game. It's like here's the character's daughter. I'm like, who cares? It's not my it's not my daughter. It's not my romantic interest. But like this person, like I have no idea. They just showed up, and then like I guess we're both doing this together. So let's.
Well, it's like not
go
seeing the
through it
horror.
together.
You impart whoever you put yourself in their shoes, and then this situation becomes your situation.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up another little side note that is relative to us talking about video games as an art form, because in 2012 was the first time that the Art of Video Games exhibit happened at the Smithsonian. And that was pretty much the first time video games were viewed as an art form. I lost my mind when that happened. I believe Okami was one of the games that's in there, Legend of Zelda, couple of things like that. But it was the first time that video games truly had been seen as like the visual art medium that they are, and like actually acknowledged it. So this game coming out like literally 1 year later, I feel like ties into that so strongly of like, yeah, this is like a truly creative medium, and it does take an artist to turn, starting from Pong all the way to now.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot that goes into these games. So
Up until like
side note.
Up until like through most of college, actually, my goal in life was to become a filmmaker, and it still kind of is in many ways. But when I took the one course at the end, like my fourth year, it was video game as art, was literally, or game design as art was literally the name of the course, and that kind of changed the game for me. Huge shout out to my teacher at the time. That was my favorite class in college, hands down. Was
Nice.
And one of our exercises was like he went and bought like 3 or 4 board games from the thrift store, and then took all the pieces, mixed them up, and gave it to us, and was like, hey, here, you guys get random pieces from random games, 2 random halves of 2 different games, and make a game. And that was like our project for like the quarter. And It was a lot of fun. And that that changed my whole like perspective of like what it takes to design games. And it led me actually to design and create Dust and Legends. And that's kind of where that came from. So that happened.
And I got a game idea with you, baby. But
we'll make it happen.
But no, talking to that point, like, yeah, I say that I'm the filmmaker and like I make stuff and all that stuff. But like the tough thing about, comparing film to video games, like film, you sit there and you watch it, you experience it. But with the game, you sit there, watch it, but you also kind of have to make it fun. And if the game can do all the things that a great film can do, but it's not fun, then is it, what have you really accomplished? And that's the tough thing, that like the games have just another thing on the order that they have to, satisfy.
There is that caveat of like, I find that most of the time, it is a great art form, but the gameplay really you really have to bring it on the gameplay front. For the game to really be,
you can't just show us a whole bunch of stuff that's pretty, and it's like there's also it's like playing part of
that's
it.
a movie. It's like I can watch a movie anytime I want, or I can play a dope game that supplies all this stuff with me and really enhances the experience.
And that works conversely too, where I think it's a really cool observation. If you play this game, you see how beautiful it is and how you travel through the environments. Whereas like a AAA shooter game is wonderful, streamlined, you move so fast, but you don't give a fuck about the environments.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like you're just shooting the thing in front of you.
You're just flying past them at 200 miles per hour.
Unless you're interacting with your life and you can hide behind them. That's it.
You're interacting with like your menu and your items more than you're actually interacting with like the world around you. And I think that's like in the grander scale of what Journey is and like what it's trying to tell people about like how we experience life. Like it's so good.
So good.
Can we get into qualms?
So let's get into qualms, baby. Josh, you start us off.
I feel like a piece of shit person for saying this because everybody was saying how much they loved it at the beginning. I do want to put like kind of like an asterisk. It eventually was not a qualm, but at first it was. I did not like that I did not get any sort of instruction. I was just, and I think it's because I had never played it. I didn't know what to expect. It pissed me off, to be perfectly honest. I was like, what the fuck do I do? Where do I go? I know that's childish. I get it.
No.
But at first I was like, wait, like I didn't know until probably more than halfway through the game that at the end of a level that there are those, because I noticed those symbols. I didn't know what they did. All I knew is that at the end of a level, there were like 4 little things. And it's like, oh, okay, so that's my collectible. I could have collected those. Okay, that's cool. Eventually, it became a thing that once I realized what the game was and really embraced what it was, it's not a qualm anymore at all. In fact, I enjoy it because what it actually does is that there's replayability to the game. And especially when you dig into the trophies and you go, wait, you can do that and that? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. But at first, upset me. And which was hard is because I was on a stream too. And I had to kind of hold back my like,
well, no,
really?
I mean, I think that's a big discussion point. I mean, like, I always quote Aaron Eagle Raptor from Game Grumps because he made a video essay about that. He made like one of the first video game essays. And I really love it about it because he talked about like a lot of modern game devs. Like, and he says this in a facetious way, and that's what got him like all it. He's like, he thinks that every person's carrying controllers. Like, I don't know what to do. I have a controller, and it's like and then the game developer's like, I have to tell him to use this stick to go somewhere. I have to use them to tell him, like, this is your batarang, this is how you fly, this is your Batmobile. It's like, then he always says like, you should liken your audience to be like, I'm just gonna press buttons and figure out what happens. But no, this speaks to that point where like there are two, I think, not even two. It's a spectrum of game players who like would love to have like those instructions as an option set before them. Like, back in the day, you got a video game, you got a little pamphlet, and then it would tell you all the controls. But if you were like me, who was like a guy who like played with Legos and it's like, fuck the instructions, I'm gonna make my own shit. Like, you don't need the instructions, but some people want them.
Well, there's always that like tutorial level, right? Where it's like, this is the first mission. It's not gonna be too intense because the game's gonna tell me what L2 does, in a second. So it can't be too, overbearing, and we all have to sit through those, even though.
But I mean, I guess it's like it again, like I said, it's a thing that was not a point of contention for me later. Once I realized what was happening, it was kind of like, I mean, like life, you just kind of go forward, and you figured it out as you go. We give you a little bit of instructions. This is how you move. This is how you move the camera. This is your little chirp thing. Hold that. Now fly, little bird, do the thing.
Yeah. I mean,
and so
that's
that was
yeah.
like but you have to base it off of my video game experience and what I've played.
Yeah.
This is unlike anything I've ever played.
No, yeah,
Ever.
and I think that's super important because, like, you know, not trying to make you like the guinea pig, but like there is a lot of audience members who have like been just brought up on games. It's like objective 1, objective 2, check your thing, you
Hints
kill
on the
guy,
screen,
check.
that kind of shit.
Yeah, and
Well,
it's
it's getting to the point where it's almost like getting too comfortable with these like standard control schemes. You know, like, you know, we'll call out first person shooters. They're super popular. There's a lot of them. They're all like L2 is
melee is always the red button,
right? There's like a, you know, shift is sprint or whatever. Control is
Hold down
is
R3.
squat. And
like,
when a game doesn't follow those rules, like you remap it, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
or you take away points or whatever, and it takes you a second to get used to it, and it kind of shows you the complacency that we can that we're sort of been bred to understand, to expect a certain thing out of video games when you just remove those shackles and remove what you can expect, you almost get to recondition players in a sense and kind of just have them play the game that you were intending them to,
and
instead of like
and that's why like I always harken back of like I don't need like dialogue, I don't need certain things, like just I can see it for myself.
And
like,
to be clear, like these are all realizations that I'm having after playing the game. Like, like going through the same things with like Josh is like, oh, like crap. What was do I hold this? How do I? Because at first I was like, wait, do I? I wasn't sure how to like traverse fast enough. Like I kept having to like walk everywhere, and I realized like there was going to be a lot of that, but eventually I kind of figured out that you can hold down circle and all that stuff to like keep momentum,
make your thing,
gather things to you. And because I would like try to do things, and then like those flying carpets would just like look at me for a second confused and then like go away. And I'm like, no, I need power. How do I do?
And I think that's the thing about game design too, which is really important, is that like you need to give the gamer an ability to mess up. If you don't, then you're kind of being an asshole. And that's what I love about Journey, is that like there's so many times I fell. And I'm like, fuck, how do I get back up there? And it's like, let me go all the way back and do it all. It's like, it's how much you really want to do it, right?
But I mean, it's a part of the, I mean, it, as fucking cliche as it is, it's about the journey. It's like, this is how life works. It's how life works. There isn't an instruction manual. It is the fucking journey, and you're going to figure that out as you go.
I made peace with me losing parts of my scarf, because I was like, that's
kind of
life, I guess.
And that's why, like, you know, again, I'm not trying to sound all preachy and all this stuff, like, but like I do empathize with a lot of people who have played games that like the things that you learn from playing Journey, and like you're so like, and I don't want to say like you're so enlightened because of it, like you realize like how much of a crutch like tutorials and all the things have been if the game doesn't really try to let you practice yourself. And that's why, like, I always say that I compare that to, you know, like how our viewing habits are and how we choose to engage with things. Like, if you expect to be told everything, then you're never going to ask questions. You're always just going to be expected to be like, why didn't you explain that to me? And so, like, that's what, like, it's interesting. And so, but like, if you have never done it, and if you walked in blind without me being like, okay, so it's not going to tell you anything, so you just have to try, then it's a detriment. It's tough. So it's completely understandable.
The only thing that I was a little miffed about that I thought was unnecessary, but I think that this is for any game that has this as a part of it, is using the controller motion to move the camera. On PS4, that is something that you can do in any video game. I personally, not an option I need or ever want.
Yeah,
because there were
this
times
is
that I was
definitely
flipped around, and it was because of my controller was in a certain thing.
To give context, Flower, you are the wind, right, Caitlin?
You're like a pedal.
Yeah, and
a flower pedal.
And you control by using the 6-axis. And so, like, if you want the wind to go faster, so I think that's kind of like that design, as Ollie was saying.
It's a remnant when they were trying to get 6-axis going.
But then I don't know if you realize this, and I don't know if this is going to trigger you, but you could just use your right analog stick to move the camera instead? Okay.
That's what I used, but there would be times that my camera would be all sorts of in a weird place after like a cinematic transition, and it was because my controller was in a weird position. So the camera
it should have done what
like,
other games do, which is just give you the choice right up the front, or turn it off. Like if it notices that you're using the stick, just turn it off until like it notices like you trying to do it. Then it can maybe re-engage.
But I do want to say that like these qualms that I had, like what I said at first, I do not really have. It was just like my initial
That's fair.
reaction qualm. Like it doesn't. After
Well,
experiencing
I would say
the
it's still
game,
valid. Like, it's still part of the gaming
I
experience.
mean, I know
so
that
would
it's
say
valid, but
still
what I'm
valid.
saying is like that's my initial impression qualm.
Yeah.
But
You're happy it
as
just
the
got
game
resolved
finished,
through you
as the
played.
game, no, it's more of like a realization. It's like on the journey, this is what I realized, that this is how life is, and this is how this game is, and I learned what was going on. It's like there are no rules.
Mhm.
There is no rules. There is no rules for this game.
There is
no. It's
rules.
like, oh, you want to go over there? Go over there.
Go.
Do you want to see what that does? Go see what it does.
Have
touch it.
fun.
Yeah. Go see,
Go touch it.
what's that shiny spot? I don't know. Go check it out. Like, that's kind of like, after the game was done, I was like, dope. I'm going to play this a few more times.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Curious,
right now, but
curious.
I'm going to play it again.
Did any of you get the Transcendence?
You mean the white?
Yes.
No, I'm so mad.
How do you get Transcendence?
I'm going to tell you, you have to get every single secret, like,
All
symbol.
the words.
And so
If you
that
get
was the
all
thing.
the words, your robe turns white.
White, and you become like them. And but the thing is, so when you play again, you're a white robe. So when you play with other people, you kind of, it's not like glory, but it's kind of like you are a person that's kind of like as enlightened as the people who
Come
left
with
the
me.
plane, because you
A
know
true
where everything is.
guide. Yeah.
And that's where I was like, one, that's the gamer inside me. It's like I need everything. But two, I was like, I would love to see that. And I would love to be part of that community of like, I am like, and so in my fraternity, you had a membership development, and then at a certain point you became a mentor. And that's one thing I always really loved, was that I love mentoring people because I always want to be the person that I needed. And that to me really speaks of like, this is your chance to have this anonymous experience to just help someone else through something they never knew. And that's why it's like,
Well-
I would do the chirp games. I would like jump over in certain places, like come over here, come over here.
But-
You can't really tell
Yeah.
them.
Like, on top of that, it's like the reason why that impresses me too is that there are times that the amount of exploration or the amount of experimentation that would take to even just find them, because they're not right. You can't always see them.
Yeah,
you have to go
they're off the
traverse
beaten
something.
path.
They might be behind a rock that you're right by, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't know unless you went around or
And
whatever.
that-
Like,
The game really invites you to explore in that sense, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
there are only a few of the symbols that are just right in your face. Like, if you miss them,
Yeah.
come
What
on,
are you, what,
bruh.
are you playing the game? But no,
Yeah.
the cool thing is like when you see the companions that you've met along the way, you see their different symbols, and you're like, in-game lore, right? So,
Yeah.
So good.
Caitlin or Ollie, any qualms?
For me, I
Only
don't really
two?
have any major qualms. Yeah, not really much. Other than I would have, to kind of Josh's point, I think they could have used a gameplay nudge at the very beginning instead of just inviting you to walk up the ridge. It maybe started on a like free flowing down flow to then like invite the player to maybe try to take control of the situation.
I see. That's interesting.
Uh-huh.
Like was it Uncharted 2 where he's on the train?
Yeah, so it's more because I've seen it where the game plays like a handoff, like the game hands off the controls to you,
Mhm.
as opposed to just like
I see what you're
go.
talking about. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Destiny 1.
No, not like Destiny.
Okay, well you're in this darkness and it's like go through this place. Like, oh, okay.
Oh no, I meant like the game is playing the game for you, and then it hands it off to you. Like
okay.
actually, it's as if the game is handing you the controller now, being
Gotcha,
like
gotcha.
like one hand. At first, it's one hand each, and then it's like fully you kind of thing.
Gotcha. Kaylin, qualms?
My immediate response is to go, no, I don't have none. I feel as though it could have been longer.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like there could have been maybe one more,
Well-
like ruin
Segment.
to come across. But
Do
at
you-
the same time, I don't care
Do you
that
have
it
the white
didn't
cloth?
happen. All right, Grumble.
And no, I'm asking the question because the thing is, okay, so when I first played it, it was like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I went through, I think, all the temples. And then the second time I played it, I went to one temple. And then I immediately went to the snow level. And so it was like a 30-minute session. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, why isn't it that long? And I was like, oh, I played the game completely. I was like, oh, the game could be completely different. And then the fact that I found out that you can get the white cloth, I'm like, oh, The game doesn't have to be 2 hours long. It could be several hours long.
Oh, it can be really long. I
Yeah.
just mean there is a line in this game that draws you to go on a certain path very quickly. And when my experience was, this is where I'm supposed to go. This is the like only really direction that I'm getting, so I need to follow it. So I feel like that specific path felt short. I know that there's more to the game. I'm just saying that kind of slipstream,
That
once you
curated
slide
path.
into it, that curated path felt just a little too short. But it's not like a true qualm because there's the options like literally everywhere else. So that's where it's like, I don't really have a qualm. If I were to have a qualm, that would be it, but I don't.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because I guess that would be my second qualm would be if it. I wish it would have more of a opportunity to invite the exploration more, like it does sometimes, where it puts the upgrades like up on a cliff, and you're like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to explore and find my way up that cliff. It is kind of, and then the area is kind of opened up to a bit more of an expansive area, and that kind of invites you naturally. Like the bridge section is like a big circle, I think, and it's like, come, there's a lot more to the space. Come and explore it. Come get all your upgrades. Unlock all the little flags or whatever they are. But I wish it was more of kind of like, the door could be over there, it could be over there, kind of like a bit more of like journey of life, pick your path kind of thing. Maybe it all leads to the same place, or whatever, but kind of, I wish it did kind of invite me to explore a few more of the nooks and crannies a bit more.
What's that called when a dungeon like regenerates? Kind of like one of those things.
Randomizer?
Oh, like a randomly generated
Like a-
dungeon kind of thing.
Kind of like that, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. For me, qualms, none. Absolutely none. I think after the first 5-10 minutes when I got my first like extension of like cloak, I was like, oh, okay, now I know what the game is. And if anything changes, I just know that there is meaning that I'm not picking up immediately. And I said this too, where it was like when I first played it, I felt it very singular journey. It was like my journey. And when I played it again, I was like, there's an actual world and story.
Layers.
And so I was like, oh, okay. And so with that, like even then, I won't even say I have the most knowledge about everything that happens in the world, but given what I do know, I know that there's so much more for me to explore. And that I 100% will, after this playthrough, after this recording, I'm going to play it again. Because why not? And it's like, and that's the thing where it's like, there's no expectation I have of it. Where other than like, I want it to just kind of give me more. And I worry like if I had I don't know. We'll see after I get the white cloak. Because to me, if it becomes too fetch questy, then that'll be my one thing. But that's it.
Fair.
So we go to rating now.
Yeah.
So I have 2 votes. Josh has 1, and Ollie and Caitlin have 0.
You have 3 votes.
I have 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought. Okay, you're right. And
I have 1.
I have 3, and you have 1.
There we go.
You're right. Yeah.
And regardless, I was going last. So, Caitlin and Ali, go first.
I got it. It's a 5.
Okay. So, surprising.
What? No, I would not change things. I mean, yes, I just said if I were to have a qualm, it would be this, but I don't. So it's a 5.
Ali?
Yeah, and I mean, same, like the qualms I brought up are just kind of like things that I would maybe casually change, but it doesn't take away from the experience of what this game is putting forward and what it's presenting. So to me, it's absolutely a 5.
Now, the second runner-up for the most votes, Josh.
It's a 5.
Oh, fuck, I was wrong.
My qualm lasted for maybe a chapter or 2, maybe. That was just me learning, but that's with any game. You learn what it is. You learn like what it is. Yeah, a good. Okay. You kind of learn what a game is in the first maybe couple of missions or whatever it is, and this one. I learned what it is, and from then on, I was on the journey. I was like, dope. All right, I'm here, and I think it deserves a 5 because I'll play it again. Don't know when, but I will. I know that there's a reason for me to. There's playability. I'm excited. So
Mhm.
I'd say it's a 5. There's nothing I would change. Like, really, now that I know what it is.
Right.
Tom?
Okay.
Well, I'm glad that some places are still open for takeout because I'm giving this a $5 footlong.
Hey! We're all
And-
the grump and not the grump.
There's no grump. And the only thing I'll say this is it's not even one of my favorite games. I'll probably say that, but I will say that it's probably one of the best games ever made. And I treat that kind of like how I treat like other art, where it's like it's not my favorite movie, but I can't deny the masterfulness of the film of the game. So. Yeah, again, I recommend anyone who's played a bunch of video games and someone that's never played a video game ever just play this one.
And just so that it's said, this game has won over 100, like well over 100 industry awards and media accolades. So it's like not just
Kind of a big
It's
deal.
made a
like
splash.
2, it's like a lot. And
Yeah.
it got
Oh, yeah.
nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah, it's not a cult
So,
classic.
Yeah.
But
It's just
yeah,
real fucking good.
thank
That's
you,
it.
Caitlin, for always nagging us that we should do this episode.
Yeah,
Yay.
God,
I'm
nagging.
glad it finally happened.
Yeah, no, now we're not doing
You're
Okami
welcome.
ever though.
If there's other games that the nation thinks that
Say
they would like us
Say
to
Okami.
play,
Say Okami.
Say Animal Crossing New Horizons because we can all play it.
say Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Caitlin and I cannot play it.
Don't mind me.
Don't worry. No, I'll buy it for you, Josh. You can play it.
Oh,
Oh,
not me.
yeah, that's
But
right.
Caitlin needs a Switch, so
Job.
work harder. I'm kidding.
I would
don't
love
say
to.
that.
No, don't
say
work
that.
harder. Don't work harder.
Don't
listen
say
to
More
that.
work?
Okay, then
No.
work smarter.
I would rather tell her stop. Just stop. Anyway,
Never work again, and maybe a Switch will show up.
everybody
There you go.
at
Let's make that
home,
promise.
thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. If you have played Journey, let us know what you thought of your experience of Journey, who you thought would be the grump. There is no grump.
None.
Tell them they're
So you are
disappointed.
wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, we appreciate everybody for stopping by and listening. Thank you for joining us for this. This has been an interesting journey being in quarantine and still continuing Nerd On.
Quite the
We are
journey.
learning, we're learning something new every week in terms of what software to use, how to do this thing, do that thing, and it's a good time. We're enjoying it, and we appreciate you all. If you're new to Nerd On, check out our website, nerdon.tv. Has all the links. All of our episodes do go to video on YouTube, so that's a fun thing. But yeah, check out our Discord, like we said, nerdon.io/Discord. Come join the conversation.
Be
the
part of this
community.
journey,
Yes, this journey that is Nerd
and
On.
we will join you on your journey.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, apparently, because
Yeah.
But you deserve.
Anonymity. But yes, that's been it. You know the drill. As always, Nerd On.
Nerd on.
Ending broadcast.